Hey everybody, it is Audrey. Welcome back to day 9 of the Summer Scrappin Series. This is the second week of the series. Today my guest is Khristina Sorge, and Khristina has all kinds of great things on her channel. Unboxing videos, kit club packages, process videos, all kinds of fun stuff. So go check out her page today. So I am doing a take 2 on a page that I actually started during my first week. If you watched all the videos during the first week of the Summer Scrappin Series, I tried to do a technique with like a masking technique using this title that says River Rats. And when I did it, I used some spray mists. And it totally failed. Ended up using a completely different picture. I did use the paper I had sprayed, and I just cut out of it. I can't remember what video number that was, but I am going to try something else. So instead of using inks, I'm going to try spray inks. I'm going to try to use some Distress Oxide ink pads. So I have also decided that I wanted to kind of make a little white frame around my page. Now I know you're looking at it and saying, well, that is blue washi tape, but I'm actually just using that washi tape as a mask. I wanted a thin white line to kind of outline my page. So I gently adhered my title down, and I just cut that out of kind of some cheap smooth cardstock. And I have a little kind of ink dauber here, and I'm going to go through with some Distress Oxide inks. Now, I also wanted to try to do this kind of pattern. So I just cut these scallops out of a piece of scrap paper, and I wanted to kind of make them look like clouds from the top, but waves from the bottom. So I was just going to flip it over once I got down to the bottom. But in the final product, you lose the detail of those scallops. I think because my photo ends up being too large and the title takes up a big chunk of the bottom, so I kind of lose that, but it's fine. I'll try it again some other time with a different pattern and different inks on a different page. So I'm just going to go through with my colors. I had only picked out 4 colors. This one is Peacock Feathers. One I think is Antique Linen, and then Honey, and then Marmalade. I'm pretty sure those are my 4 colors, and I wanted to make sure I kind of like evened out the amount that each color was taking up the page, so I went back through and added some more aqua in there. These little daubers, I bought them at a craft fair it was a scrapbooking expo, a local expo, and I cannot remember the vendor that sold them. I have looked them up before. I haven't been able to find them, but the closest thing I have been able to find is these are just like craft foam, but they're thick. And during the wintertime, they sell these shapes if you were going to make like craft foam s'mores snowmen, if that makes any sense to you at all. But you can find these like in the craft foam section of your craft store, like Michael's or Joann's or whatever. But mostly, I think, around the seasonal time. Okay, so I'm going through these colors. I love this color palette. I think that's one of my favorite things about this page. I was worried that this orange might be a little bit too dark, but I end up liking it. The only thing I wish I did is I added more aqua at the top. I didn't leave enough space for enough blue at the top, but it's fine. So there is my photo, and during this whole thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? What if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, it's still pretty. But I was just hoping it worked better than the last time. I'm going to just try to add a little bit more definition, but again, this all gets covered up. But it's kind of neat when you look at it now. I like those kind of wavy things. All right, so I'm going to spray these Distress Oxide inks with some water because they just have such a cool reaction to the water. And I just love how simple that is. Just some water and blot it off and done, and you get this really cool marbling effect. Not marbling, that's not the word I'm looking for, splattering. Speaking of splattering, I'm going to go through with some other sprays, kind of a darker blue here, and just sprinkle those around. And I think I pick another teal that kind of matches the teal in the top corner. Okay, so now is the moment of truth. I let that dry. I passed over it with my heat gun a couple times, and okay, that looks pretty good. This is the part I was worried about. So it came out okay. I was pretty happy. It's not super defined, but it is pretty. Um, so I'm gonna start working with my photo here. I love this picture of my kids and my dog. My dog, by the way, she passed away just a couple weeks ago. She was 15 and a half. I miss her so much, so that's why I haven't been doing much on my channel. But they would just play on the beach all the time. And of course, we're on the St. Lawrence River, and a term up there they use for kids all the time is river rats. So I loved using that title, river rats. And this is just captures them perfectly when they play in the sand and make sand castles and carry that bucket back and forth to the water 1,000 times and play games in the sand and then go swimming, and there's sand everywhere. And yeah, I love it. So I spent like 15 minutes looking through every summer collection I have to look for a pail or a bucket with a little shovel. I knew I had one somewhere. This is the only one I found out of all the collections I have, and I have a ton of summer collections. It was in a Simple Stories line. I pulled out a whole bunch of other collections too, these old crepe paper ones, a couple other Simple Stories collections, and I'm just going to cluster. I'm mostly sticking with the color palette I have there with the yellows and the oranges and the blues. So I'm just picking some phrase stickers and some, again, different icons. I'm bringing a little bit of that orange up into the top left corner because the orange is really heavy on the bottom. I got a little sunscreen bottle there. I was torn about whether or not to add a blue element to the bottom of the page. I like how that looks. When I look at it here in the video, I do end up changing it a little bit, but to kind of keep the blue closer to the top altogether. So I found a little piece of scrap paper that I thought I would make a journaling spot out of, so this is just going to get tucked under the photo. I'm just going to cut that circle out, tuck that in there, and I will spend a few minutes just kind of playing around with these bits and rearranging them. So to make my title stand out a little bit better, I decided that I need something around the edges to define it. That's when I got the bright idea that I am going to hand stitch around the edge. Before I do that, I'm going to glue down the parts, the photo to the mats that I have, and just glue down the things that I have in the cluster just so they stick together so I don't have to reposition them again. And I'll take those off here. And I'm going to get out my piercing tool. So I just take this little piercing tool and I work my way around all the letters. I know hand stitching really looks nice and it has a great effect, but this stitching and piercing literally took me about 2 hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, why do I get myself into this position? So there's all my holes that are pierced. And now I'm going to go through with just some white thread, just something to define the edge again a little bit better. I just love how that background came out. I keep looking at it. It's so pretty. I wish my photo were smaller. That's why I often use small photos, is because I want the background and the artsiness of my page to show through too. And I used a larger photo on this particular page, but it's fine. So there it is. I actually really like that. It adds some nice texture. It defines the letters more. I'm not sure if I love this font. I can't remember the name of this font, but I think the word rats looks a little bit funny when I look at it in some ways, but anywho. I had also considered stitching that white frame I left with washi tape. I also considered stitching a white frame in there, but I just didn't want to spend any more time stitching because at some point you just have to be like, okay, I gotta get this page done and move on. I was looking for a few last minute little bits. I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for. Just kind of, perusing through the stash, seeing if anything catches my eye, something else to add. But I'm going to go ahead and start adhering some things down. I forgot to distress these edges of my photo mat and my journaling spot, so I did that. And then I added some craft foam to the back of my photo and some tape. I could have maybe used a little bit more blue ink to the right of the photo there. That may have been a little bit better, just to have a little bit more aqua there. So I'm just popping the rest of the things off, some with foam squares, some I stick right to the page, and I use different size foam squares for different size embellishments depending on if they're big or small. I make one last dive into my stash looking around for things. I find another piece of flare and some other buttons that I'm going to add. And I really don't do too much else. I do go back through off camera. Oh, some enamel dots. I forgot some enamel dots. And I added some sequins last minute, just a couple yellow sequins. I'm pretty sure they're from Spiegelmom Scraps, which you will see here in the close-up in just a few minutes. So I love this technique of masking with the inks, and I'm so glad that I attempted this again. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? So here is the finished page coming up. I think my favorite thing about this page is the colors. I like the not your typical rainbow and kind of going from the blue to the kind of yellowish to the orange. I think that's just a really pretty summer palette. I do like the way the title came out, even though it was pain. It still came out nice, and I liked how it's defined. So that wraps it up for day 9 of the Summer Scrappin Series. Join me again tomorrow for day 10 and a new guest designer. So thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure you check out Khristina's channel as well, and stay scrappy, my friends. Have a good one.